So we're finally getting some intelligent feedback. I make a debug distribution. It's on my website, but I don't list it. What it is okay. So when you boot, let's say the hard disk, it starts in the master hard disk boot sector, the master boot sector. This loads stage 2 of the master boot sector, and this has a little bit more room. I probably could use just one stage, but anyway, as a matter of fact, stage 2 is stored in the 000 boot directory, and when you install the master, it saves the old boot record. So what the boot records do is, this is just, I started as a DOS application. When I started, I was not aware of 7C00 being the load address. I started launching in 1993 a real mode DOS, and so I didn't even know there was a fixed start address. I just assumed. I made my code position independent since way back then. The code I started with set up a global descriptor table and it set up the GDT to be position independent, and that's how I've kept it. I've kept my code position independent since it started being launched from DOS. Maybe DOS has a fixed location as well, I don't know, but I like to think I'm professional, and position independent is a good quality. So it takes some work to so I do I have a table that's mostly filled, and then it puts the final numbers in there for the wherever it loaded. There's a data segment and a code segment that are set to the start of this file. This is okay. Let me explain my boot technique. So so once you install the master, each of mine repositions, each of my boot sectors copies their own code up to the highest possible location, and then loads at 7C00, or the original location. So it copies itself up to the highest, up to just underneath the extended BIOS, up to basically about 90,000, copies itself up to 90,000, and then loads. So stage 1 copies itself and loads, stage 2 copies itself and loads, and stage 2 prompts using the BIOS, and then it loads the partition boot sector, which is here, and each one of these has fixed addresses. I install my own operating system, and that means I have the sector numbers of the files, and I write the sector numbers into my bootloader, and so my bootloaders are really simple. There's no reason to I have my kernel has to navigate the file system. There's no reason to do it twice. If my kernel can navigate, then I have a live CD that that simply that navigates and writes it into the boot sector. So when you install it, anyway, a lot of people make fancy boot sectors. Grub is ridiculously fancy. As a matter of fact, my bootloaders my bootloaders don't even change out of real mode. So as a matter of fact, when my bootloaders load my kernel, the kernel project file is here, and it makes a flat binary. I don't have segments. My compiler just sticks the code function by function into a flat binary. I don't have a link. I just so there's a header that's just some declarations, and then it starts 16, 32, 64. So the very first, there's a jump and then there's another jump. It jumps into this in real mode, this binary file. This binary file has to be contiguous for the bootloader to load it. And when we switch to Red C, everything is contiguous. Anyway, so my kernel has my kernel calls some BIOS routines. This is what Grub does for other people. You might as well do it yourself. You know what? If you're going to do multi-core, you have to know how to change out of real mode anyway. You have to do it. You have to change out of real mode for multi-core. You might as why do you want to be dependent on Grub? That's the CIA. They're trying to mess with you. They're trying to make you under their control. Anyway, and don't use CHS. Don't use LBA 28. Use LBA 48. You want to use the interrupt 1342 for loading. Anyway, so mine loads my kernel and jumps in real mode, and it gets the memory map from the BIOS. It gets the PCI bus number of buses. It gets so it does some things in real mode, and then it changes to protected mode. So I have a problem. If my operating system does port I/O for the disk, and it's possible that is not an option, that it can be disabled or it can be not functional, I guess. So at that point, my operating system, well, I'm going to command the industry to change. You might laugh, but I have the authority of God. I have God will back me up. Anyway, so I have a rule. I decided, I did one PCI device, and it's such a mess that I decided it's kind of like imagine you have 5th grade algebra, and then suddenly you jump to college level abstract algebra. You got to say, no, we can't be doing this. Unless, you know, if you're teaching college algebra and college courses, it's one thing. Basically, PCI is a whole different commitment, and I decided I'm not going to do any PCI devices. You know, a lot of people are really proud of interrupts, but they make the mistake of they're so eager to use them, and they're so ashamed of not using them that they make a fool of themselves, because just finding out which interrupt is monumental. And there's a lot of silly people who make a bogus attempt, and you know it's only going to work on 1 out of 5 machines, when I did my PC, I did a HD audio. That's the one I did. And as a matter of fact, I decided to do my. You have to keep the DMA buffer full, and there's really, it's a big buffer. I made it. I don't know. I think it needs a refill every. I would guess 20 milliseconds, and so you can simply, if you have a timer interrupt, just check it to see if it needs more data, and fill it. You don't have, in other words, there's a latency issue. If you want your video game to have synchronized sound, you don't want too much latency. Otherwise, you can make a huge DMA buffer and simply, at your leisure, check it 50 times a second. That's not very much. Anyway, so as a matter of fact, I had a task that ran, I don't know, let's see what I had. I had a task. You know, a lot of people are too ashamed. They're really, it's kind of like, what's the fairy tale about somebody who made a fool of themselves because they were arrogant, or they wouldn't do the simple, they wanted to be fancy. Anyway, so where's my so I had a task. Oh, here's my task. I stay in a loop and I fill the buffers. I'm doing it. I'm sleeping 1 millisecond. I didn't want very much latency. Anyway, so that's. Anyway, as a matter of fact, the reason I have more success than all the rest is because mine is robust. I can, you know how the AK-47 won't jam? Mine works even if the BIOS is wicked and doesn't give you mouse interrupt 12. Mine still works. I can handle pulling the mouse. I do need the keyboard. If you don't have the keyboard and you don't have the mouse interrupt, they get mixed. But if you have the keyboard, you can live without the mouse interrupt. Anyway, so as a matter of fact, the issue they were talking about, I have a debug disk that, so my operating system has a kernel binary file that it loads into the low 640, and then once that's ready, it loads the compiler.bin file, and then it starts compiling my just-in-time code. Half my code is ahead of time, half my code is just-in-time. During boot, the Atom directory is compiled into memory, and as a matter of fact, for my debug, I try to put as much of the Atom into the kernel bin. This is loaded by the BIOS, and that has disk access, and my disk port IO used to work pretty often. Now it's almost guaranteed not to work, so there's no way my kernel is going to access the disk natively. It's hopeless. And then there's secure boot. So basically, I'm just I have retreated into VMware and QEMU and VirtualBox. I've retreated until I return with the force of God. So I give up. I'm not going to do native until I come back with the authority of God. Okay, so the odds of getting the kernel disk working with port IO are almost zero. But as it turns out, it gets worse. God said 640 by 480 16 color was a covenant, and it looks like this computer doesn't have 640 by 480, so that's even worse. We're going to have a factory recall or something to punish them, because the CIA very deliberately put the secure boot. Now, who does that hurt? Linux doesn't have a problem with secure boot. They can't boot with Windows. They used to be able to dual boot. So who does that hurt? The little motherfucker took a shot at me. And guess what, motherfucker? God said Wine is to replace Windows. Microsoft is canceled. The company's history. Okay, they fucked up. If you show mercy, you get mercy. The motherfuckers did secure boot. You're fucked. Okay? So, the little motherfucker took a shot at me. The Linux gets secure boot, okay? All the other operating systems, in other words, me, you motherfuckers, now you pay. They took a shot straight at me. Okay, you fucking paid for that. Linux gets it. So secure boot is to protect you from all the other operating systems. In other words, me. You're fucked. Show mercy, get mercy. No mercy, no mercy. That's the way justice works. Wine replaces Windows. That's what God said. So we're going to bring in, we can immediately have the port IO mode, but we might as well switch to a simple mode. The TAPI and ATA are kind of, that's a big kludge. We're going to clean that up. The TAPI is built on ATA. We're going to fix that. You know, they don't like CD-ROMs. They're trying to get rid of them. We're going to, anyway. So, someone was talking about my debug disk doesn't get very far. The graphics mode, it's not using B800 text, so I made my my fallback. By the way, this is not text mode. It's graphics mode. It looks like text mode because I want it 8x8 font. GR circle. This is why I'm a genius. You can do graphics in one line of code. You know, they talk about the black triangle or something, where it takes an average person about 3 days and, I don't know, 50 lines of code to get a black triangle. Anyway, we can do a triangle, but anyway, I'm very proud that I was able to, you know, if you're designing the 1040 EZ tax form, you want to be as careful as possible to keep it simple. And it's amazing how difficult it is to keep it simple. There's always something that ruins the simplicity, but I managed to keep it simple. Anyway, so I have a this by the way is a RAM reboot. It doesn't go back to real mode. It just goes to it loads part of the kernel, and it loads the kernel and does a reset, just the memory structures and stuff. Anyway, so that's real handy. But sometimes you want to do an actual hardware reboot. Goes all the way back to the boot sector, the bootloader. Now what I did is I made it so if it fails, let's see, I made it, well, if 640 by 480 is not working, it will run in text mode. I thought, but believe it or not, it's not always B800. I just found out. I should have known. I knew they have pages. Anyway, I thought I would never experience it. That's the lesson of PCs, is every PC is different. Every PC is a different computer. So we're going to compile the kernel with text mode, and if you do a soft reboot, it doesn't actually go back to the BIOS, so you wouldn't notice. You have to do a hard reboot if you want to see the text mode. So this is running in VMware. Has a bug that's just for me. You have to, if you do stretch guest, every time you have to reset it to auto, and they did this just to fuck with me. They'll pay for it. So this is actual B800. A lot of people think, why can't I do B800? Well, it's because normally it's not in text mode, it's in graphics mode. Now I have everything at an alias anyway. But anyway, so this is B800. This is actual text mode. So my hope, my debug disk was supposed to go into this mode, but it this computer doesn't seem to have, you know, B800 is VGA. All the graphics, this works amazingly well. It just doesn't have graphics. Anyway, so I'm very proud of this, even though it's not very important. Usually it runs a little bit faster than normal. That doesn't look good. So, oh, we just recompiled the normal kernel. It will take effect when we reboot. So, VMware is pretty wicked. I got a long list. Look at the sound, the little motherfuckers. They put distortion. Anyway, so payback's a bitch. So, so it's not really worth, well, I could. The question is, should I make it work for other text mode besides B800? If I don't have a buffer, it's not, I'm not gonna, I can't do a stream. I need the buffer, a frame buffer, text buffer. Anyway, I think you can, when you're doing the VGA, when you're doing the BIOS, you give it a page number. There might be another address in the B800. Maybe it's A1000 or A10000. No, I don't think it's going to work. If it doesn't work at B800, I think we're out of luck. No, we're not doing other modes. 640 by 480 is what God said. So basically, we retreat into VMware until we come in glory and conquer. Okay, so at least the idiots for 10 years couldn't get it to boot. They're retard. They're trying, they insist, it's been retard. Everybody else gets it to boot, but the retard experts can't get it to boot. Fucking retard.